Hey y'all, it's Miss Jeromin. We are going to address Russia's civil society and election system in the upcoming few minutes. This is a picture of Putin looking very authoritarian, of course, and this is a picture of one of the members of the punk rock band with an unfortunate name, Pussy Riot, and this band has caused some upheaval in Russia recently with some political protest. So here we go. Political participation. The first thing that we do want to note is that this is an illiberal democracy, which means the only thing democratic going on in Russia are elections. And there's questions about how rigged and how free and fair these elections are in the beginning, anyway. So, it's illiberal. There's a lot of co-optation. So remember, the state is going to be running the interest groups, and the government basically is going to restrict any group that isn't pro-Putin. So if you are trying to be critical of the Putin regime, your group is shut down. In fact, an example of co-optation, and I'm sure I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, so as usual, if you know how to pronounce it, just put a comment and I will fix it and I will never pronounce it wrong again in my class. So the Nashi, they are a youth wing of Putin supporters. They oppose and protest people who are in opposition of Putin or businesses that are in opposition to Putin. So they're like a youth pro-Putin protest group. So of course they get a lot of state support and Putin doesn't try to shut them down. The groups that Putin does try to shut down would be the ones that are in opposition to him. And in 2007, there were rules put into place that severely restricted the use of public protest within Russia. So you can protest, but you can only protest by yourself. You can't protest in a group. If you do protest in a group, the people with you have to be, like 50 meters away from you. And you can't have more than 100 people protesting at once. So you could have 99 people protesting, but y'all all have to be 50 meters away from each other. Okay, you can't block pedestrian traffic, you can't block motor traffic. There are specific places where you may protest and places where you cannot protest. Um, you can't protest near a government building. So all of those restrictions are put into place. And let's be honest, if you're protesting by yourself, you're picketing by yourself, you're holding a sign by yourself, the cops are going to harass you. So you don't protest. In 2012, the punk rock band Pussy Riot, again, unfortunate name, was protesting in front of a Russian Orthodox church who supported Putin in his re-election bid. So the church endorsed Putin to be president, and they decided that they were going to play a concert in front of this church, and two of the members were arrested and held in prison for hooliganism and anti or like religious hatred remarks. And this is in a country where most of the people are atheists, so remember that. The other Russia opposition movement is another protest group. Uh, this group brings together people from the left and right of the political spectrum that are just anti-Putin. They actually, in 2009, they had a series of monthly protests. They had protest on the 31st of every month to affirm the right of freedom of assembly and freedom of speech in Article 31 of the Russian Constitution. And dozens of their protesters were arrested for doing that. All right, let's move on to elections. Um, Look, Russian elections really are considered by the international community and election watchers plagued with fraud and corruption. They are rigged. It That's just the way it is. There is and there's around 65% voter turnout, and that's even questionable because that many people don't even want to bother to vote in Russian elections because they already know what the outcome's going to be. It's going to be Putin or his supporters within his party, which is United Russia. And so, for example, of a rigged election, we know that Chechnya is not really super pleased with the way that Putin's run the government, and the Chechens are separatist, even though they did get the referendum to make their own constitution. But, for example, in Chechnya, Putin won almost every single vote. Now, common knowledge would tell you that that probably didn't happen. Um, the presidential system of winning an election, basically they have a runoff majority system. So if you're not sure what runoff majority is, please go back and look at the notes or the video on civil society and intro to elections. So what they do is they do that first election, then they pick the two most popular people, and they have a second election where that person, whoever wins 51% of the vote, is going to win the election. But that's never necessary anymore because we all know who's going to win the 50% plus the first time. That is Putin. So in the past couple of years, they've never done that second round. The State Duma, the way that their legislative branch works was it's their parliament. They have 450 seats. Half of those seats are won through single member district. So 225 are won like the US House of Representatives, and the other half are proportional representation. Putin actually tried to change it all to proportional representation until he realized that his party actually might lose seats unless he had the winner take all single member district. So he changed it back to help him again. So they are going to be half and half. So it's a hybrid system. And then here you go. Here's a demonstration of, or a graph of, the seats held by Putin's party in the Duma and then the other competing parties. So when Putin thought he might lose this majority if he went to completely proportional representation, he quickly changed it back so he could maintain power. I'm not in the United Kingdom yet. Why did you do? I didn't want that to change. Okay. Another thing that happens in Russia are referendums. So there are referendums too. This is a vote where the people get to pass a law or a policy. Again, we've talked about the Chechnyan constitution, where the Chechnyan people were given the ability by Putin to vote on their own constitution if they would stop popping off. And they were somewhat appeased by that. So that's an example of a referendum at the regional level. And then the annexation of the Crimean Peninsula, which is located right here. So here's Ukraine, there's Russia, there's a connection between the Crimean Peninsula and Russia right here. And Putin allowed the people of Crimea, who are ethnically more Russian than anything, to vote on whether or not they wanted to be a part of Russia and break off from Ukraine. And they did vote to, again, with the UK. They did vote to be a part of Russia, but there was questions about how legitimate that election was as well. So that's just a quick overview of Russia. Illiberal democracy in the flesh. Yeah. Thanks, guys.